Welcome to the Kidmin Huddle with Amber Pike, where children's ministry leaders get equipped, encouraged, and empowered to disciple with intentionality, growing God's kingdom one child at a time.
Welcome back to the Kidmin Huddle. Today I am joined by father and son superstar duo, Stan and Josh Gibbons. Welcome.
I don't know where the super came from.
It's my podcast. I say what I want.
That's right. That's
All right, guys, welcome. Stan and Josh are with the ministry 614 Ministries, but Stan has been a pastor for 40 years. So before we jump into today, why don't you guys kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, maybe an embarrassing story about each other.
That's good. So, and Amber, I'll just say it's been an honor to get to know you through your podcast. When Josh sent me the link to that, I was driving 6 hours. So I got to know a lot. And I really think there's a similar energy that you and I have to get to the heart of things and go to the core ministry stuff. The wow of kids ministry is Jesus, not the room and not the stuff. And so I think you get that. And if you can get your kids to really fall in love with Jesus, you got a whole better plan than just falling in love with the building. And the stuff. So I love that about your ministry. I appreciate that. So.
I'm impressed you could listen to me for 6 hours. I couldn't listen to me for 6 hours.
It just plays over and over. So, but I've been in ministry for about 46 years now, really since I was 17 years old, my home church, Northside, where I serve now for the last 26 years. I was called to ministry, and I love what I do. I love small church work. I served in a big church in Birmingham for 15 and a half years, and then got called back to my home church and been here ever since, and I love it. I love serving with pastors now. Alongside our small church ministry we have, we help support small churches with 614, and I brought Josh on board to do that for us back in 2018 when we launched it, and he's been a huge support in that. So he's my favorite firstborn son. I hate to say that.
Your only firstborn son.
Well, yeah, but you're also my favorite. So.
All right, Josh, give us the detail on you, and I know you, but everybody else might not know you.
So I've been with the ministry since we launched in 2018. So I came on to handle communications and a lot of the digital and social media aspects of the ministry. That's sort of my niche in serving and everything. I did about 20 years, almost 20 years as the communications director for Northside. Before rolling off just recently, and still do some of the stuff there a little bit when Michael or somebody else sends me a text and says, "Hey, I have no idea how to do this."
Yeah, the reality is he hated my PowerPoint slides. As a high schooler,
yes.
As a high schooler, he hated my PowerPoint slides. It's like, Dad.
I wasn't going to go there. I was not going to go there.
That's all I got, son. That's it right there. My creative stopped right there.
Yeah, so I was like, no, we can't. There is no way we can do that. And from being connected with me through Carl at Church Visual, shout out to Carl, that I have a little bit of a tendency to say, hey, we need to have better visuals here with X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. Especially once I got into college, and I declared my major in broadcast journalism, but I had to take a lot of graphic design and digital media classes, even under that umbrella. And once I started doing that, I was like, no, there's no way we can do better here in this area. So yes, I did take over the PowerPoints, and
in high school,
and he never saw them ever again.
Yeah.
So. And the congregation rejoiced.
Right. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
You got it.
So. Exactly.
I love it. And in true small church fashion, you as a teen were taking over things.
Oh yeah. And I've been doing it ever since, and I've always loved it. And running all of the, eventually, one thing led to, how small church world works. It's like, hey, if Josh can do the PowerPoints, maybe he can do social media, maybe he can set up a good website for us. And so it kind of all snowballed.
Also something I had created that he hated.
It kind of all snowballed from there. And did all of that. And then in 2018, Dad got a real big heart for helping small churches on a bigger scale. And said, let's launch a ministry to help small churches. And we had been listening to some podcasts at the time and about other guys that were doing that in different ways. So we kind of stepped out, and I said, hey, if we're going to do this, then that our ministry is going to need, all the branding and the marketing. It's going to need a face. It's going to need, all the things. So I run that side of the ministry. And I also help a lot of our small church pastors and ministry leaders do the same thing, right? Because a lot of these small churches that we step into, I mean, Amber, they don't have any of that stuff at all. A lot of them don't even know they need to be on those platforms. They don't know why they would need a Facebook page or an Instagram. Why would the pastor need to be on Instagram? Why would we need a website or a podcast? They don't think about those things. So it takes somebody stepping in and gently telling them, hey, if you're going to connect with the next generation, the Gen Zs, the millennials, if your church is going to be here after all you guys are gone, you got to speak their language. So.
That's a whole nother podcast issue. Also, if you want to come to Kentucky and talk to my pastor, because it's bad in our situation and I've got too much to do. So I post about the kids. Our Facebook is our live streams and whatever I post. Because I'm like, can I have admin power?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So some of what you guys do, it's at 614, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but you all go in and you help revitalize churches. You are encouraging them. You're offering them coaching and help. So if you were to describe, what does a healthy church look like? What would it be? I know, loaded question.
Yeah, my favorite question. And I say it all the time. I'm a C- student. I fought for every C. I pulled every D up to a C- to get out of school. So it has to be really simple for me. And I try to keep everything as simple as possible. When I study the Old and New Testament, the disciples were goobers. I mean, they were just as raw, stupid, simple as you can be. And even in the Old Testament, Israel just didn't get it. So I think the scriptures are written to us simple-minded people. And Jesus gave us one clear instruction before he left. Let's go and make disciples. So I say a healthy church has to be at least making disciples. But if you can say we're making disciples because we're having Bible studies, but if those Bible studies aren't making disciples, if the disciples aren't making disciples are disciple makers. So I say it has to be somewhere reproducing itself. Doesn't mean your church numbers are growing. It means the guy that works at the plant is having lunch Bible studies with the guys at the plant. And he's got a ministry to people because you've got a ministry to him. So I think church is supposed to be just a disciple-making process. And Jesus changed the world with 11. So it doesn't take very many to get it done. You just have to get after it. And so that to me, the core is true discipleship.
I love that. So what would you say, especially for small church, because we have a friend and he had some statistic that said the number of churchgoers are actually small or medium churches. I don't know what the statistic is, but
yeah,
I'm betting a lot of the people listening to this podcast are small, medium, or schmedium, my favorite term, churches.
I like it.
How would you judge, okay, are we making disciples? Like, what would be some evaluation, some rubrics? Is this happening or not?
Sure. So the first thing, one of the first things we'll do, and it may intimidate pastors to not even call us to get help anymore, but the first thing I'll do is if I'm talking with a pastor, is I'll say, tell me which guys in the church are you discipling or outside the church? Who are you personally investing in to try to draw them closer to Jesus? Could be informal discipleship. Like when I did my yard business, all my customers were informal disciples. If I could find a time to sit on the porch with them, stand on the front porch, stand out in the front yard and talk with them about pulling them closer to Jesus, I would. So it's informal or formal, but ultimately the pastor has to set that example. If the church is without a pastor, then I'm looking at those leaders, the board, the deacons, whoever, whatever they call their leadership, the elders. And I'm saying, can I meet with you guys? Tell me somebody you're working with. Tell me somebody you're trying to grow closer to the Lord. And so it's the marker. If they look at you like, what are you talking about? You go, all right, we got to go back to the drawing board, right? This is, the old football deal. This is a football. There's the goal line. This is what we're trying to get across there. So you have to start at the basics. And the pastor's role is to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. So while we're doing it, we're equipping. And so just trying to get churches to get back on that very basic level ground. Quit trying to worry about all these growth tactics of having flags out in your front yard and all the stuff that looks like it's, we got to have special coffees and all that. That's all good. I
mean, the coffees are pretty important though.
Really, to this generation, they are. And it helps. But if the coffee's there and there's no real relational stuff, not going to help you. So we try to get back to the basics on that really, really hard and try to evaluate that with the church. Say, where are you? And do your mom or your older moms discipling your younger moms? Are your moms good at discipling the children? All the stuff you're focused on. So
I love it.
So we look pretty
I love
straight
it.
at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so coming from a seniors pastor's perspective, because sometimes there's a lot of unhealthy relationships between the children's ministry leaders and the senior pastors. Like, been there, done that. I could make a t-shirt line and it would sell like crazy.
Right.
And often there is fault at both sides. So we
Sure.
want healthy churches that we are seeing discipleship happening. We want to see dads, especially, leading their kids at home. We want to see spiritual growth from infancy on up. So what sort of things should children's and family leaders be doing relationally with the senior pastor to make sure that that relationship is healthy and strong?
Yeah, one of my biggest worries, and I've seen it time after time, church after church, ministry after ministry, even in my own ministries at times. And you know this term from being in ministry for a while, but there's island ministries inside a church where a youth pastor or a children's pastor or a music pastor, they got their own thing going and they're really not connected to the main church flow. They're so busy and successful and good at what they're doing, or so involved in what they're doing, they really don't know. They don't even know the announcements that happen Sunday. They're like, oh, I didn't know we were having a party this weekend for the, kids ministry or whatever. So I always worry about children and youth ministers, especially, becoming islands unto themselves, like isolated. And so our church, like you suggest on your podcast, our church has the kids stay in the service until the preaching time. So they see their parents worship. They're involved in our worship, our announcements. We do quite a bit of testimony time where people just give popcorn testimonies through that. So they get to hear that. Bible verses, we have our church read. Tell me your favorite Bible verse this week out loud. And the kids get to hear adults all excited about verses. So that's good. But it's very easy to get disconnected. And so they need to be obviously they need to be in a regular staff meeting, but they need to be in the church. I ask my children's director to find somebody at least once a month that'll cover you totally. And you're down here with us. Ours is upstairs kids ministry, as some churches are. So you're in the sanctuary with us and the kids or with somebody else that you trust. And you can actually involve yourself in the whole day of just, being with the church family. So I think that's pretty important. And then they need to hear the announcements. Our announcements aren't on our recordings. We just record the message. So somehow they've got to get information. And then the last thing I say is the children's pastor, the youth pastor should invite the pastors over to their house for dinner or coffee or whatever. But somehow there needs to be a relational thing. And hopefully the pastor's doing the same. The pastor's saying, hey, come hang out with us this weekend and let's just have dinner on our deck, or I'm going to grill out some hamburgers and hot dogs and bring your kids and we're going to play for a little bit and just be friends and get to know each other. And that takes some of that tension away.
Man, I wish you were my senior pastor. So children's leaders, if you don't have this kind of senior pastor, you need to tell them to go call Stan at 614 Ministries.
Come on.
But seriously, yes, we need to have really good communication because, the senior pastor, whether you are a small church or a massive church, he's got a lot going on. So you got to make sure that you're communicating to him. Here's the wins. Here's the struggles. Here's what's what. You need to be present.
Tell us as pastors what you need, and don't whine about it or nag us or beg us, but just tell us, hey, we really need to try to work on this. And I need more curriculum, or I need more helpers. My children's work will say that to me all the time. Can you give me more helpers? I'm like, I'm on it. I'll go get them. I've got some clout. So
because you get the vision that you get, it's more than just babysitting. And that's if I could have a soapbox, that's one of my soapboxes that I wish senior pastors, that they all understood the importance of children's ministry. Because there still is a lot who have that, well, you're babysitting. I'm doing the real work with the grownups, and you keep them quiet. And like, no.
Well, at our last summit back in March, one of my opening sessions that I led had to do with Psalm 78, I think, where it's multiple generations. Yeah. You're supposed to be pouring into multiple generations the wonders of God. So in my church, I can ask the people. We're a recovery church, so we got tons of crazy miracle stuff happening. That we hear the stories of. This guy was, here in a very bad place in life. This lady was a atheist, agnostic, God-hating person living homeless behind a a mall, and now she's leading a ministry. So you look at all that and you're just amazed. And I'm like, those are the wonders of God, but the kids need to know that. They need to know about Noah. They need to know about Jonah. They need to know about, the walls of Jericho, the walls of Nehemiah. They need all the good stuff too there, Jesus and Peter and all that good stuff. But they also need to know the wonders that happen today. And so we really believe that the kids ministry is where that, gets a good launch. And of course, we try to teach our families at home to do the same thing. So part of that's a multi-layered ministry that you're trying to pour into. So
I love it. I love it. That's a great segue to my next question. All right, Josh, your dad was a pastor your whole life, basically, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about, okay, the church, making sure that the church is healthy, that discipleship is happening, that good communication is happening between the children's leaders and the pastor. So what about at home? What sort of things did Pastor Dad do at home to make sure you've got 2 siblings, right?
Oh, yeah.
To make sure that you and your siblings were being discipled at home?
I would just like to say I'm going to call him Pastor Dad from now on.
Please do. So my mom comes and helps in our kids group, and half the kids are her grandchildren. So we call her Miss Grammy. Everybody calls her Miss Grammy, and she goes down the line and kisses each kid on the head. And sometimes the kids that aren't her grandkids are like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, Miss Grammy and Pastor Dad. Yeah,
that's so good. That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of that. I know for me growing up, and yes, I do have 2 younger siblings. I have a brother that's a year younger than me. I have a sister that's a year younger than him, so we were all stair-stepped. And I think that a really big part of that for us goes back to being raised the right way in church, and that none of us grew up sort of bitter or hating, ministry or life or church life at all. And a big part of that was just being molded and shaped and discipled as kids in the right way all through our younger years. And being, put in the right, kids ministries under the right kids leaders. And so that when we finally did get into our preteen and teen years, we didn't have a bitterness towards the local church or towards ministry. I think that there was a lot of, I know for us as kids, there were some youth, there were some kids leaders that spoke into our life from a very young, early age. That were just very, solid and, real, helpful in that regard, I think, for us. And then obviously, mom and dad, never really forced it or pushed it on us, as kids, but we grew up with a love for that kind of stuff, for the stories of scripture and, that kind of thing. So I think that's a huge part of it as far as parenting goes.
I love that.
Yeah. And Amber, we took them with us. When I was a youth minister, even when they were little bitty, we'd take them with us to the youth retreats. We'd take them with us to camps. We took them to the singles retreats, to the beach, or whatever we were doing. So they were adopted by our youth groups,
which is so cool for a little kid to have the teenagers loving on them.
10 brothers now that'll run them all over and ride on their shoulders and all that stuff. We got tons of
and I have
pictures of that. So,
I have memories,
mission trips.
Yeah, I have memories, Amber, of being a little boy at that big church in Birmingham that Dad referenced earlier, and eventually getting to the point where it was cooler for us to hang out with Dad and the college kids, and they were in a separate building. And so a lot of times on Wednesday nights when we were doing our kids thing or our youth thing, my brother and I would want to sneak over to the college kid and go hang out with Dad because he was hanging out with all the cool kids. But it was us seeing him do ministry, right? When we would come in there, it was Dad with his guitar leading worship for the college kids, or, it was, hey, that so-and-so who babysat us last week, at the house, let's go hang out with him or her. We would go eat pizza with the college kids and all that stuff. So we got to see ministry in action. We got to see Dad doing what he was called to do. And I think that made a really big difference for us.
And it's your full circle discipleship. The guys I poured into began pouring into my family, even to the point that they're on our board now.
Yeah.
614 board is the guys I poured into.
Oh yeah.
And they pour into them. They pour into us. We pour into them still. But it's just full circle discipleship. That when he was talking about the youth leaders that they really loved, it's guys that had been raised up under the children's and youth ministries that I led. So they become their leaders.
Yep.
And it's just a full circle discipleship process.
Yeah, when we launched 614 in 2018, those were the guys that were saying, "Tell us how we can help. What do we need to do? How can we donate to this? How can we contribute?" And 3 or 4 of those guys are on the board now.
Yeah, and I know you're a big proponent of like the passage in Deuteronomy where we're to in the highways and byways as you're rising up, as you're going along. So we just took them along with us on pretty much everything. And I think that's a discipleship model that a lot of parents sometimes overlook. We find babysitters so we can go do ministry when we should be taking the kids with us and letting them help us. And
that's where you develop your gifts and talents.
Yeah.
I was that. My mom was the VBS leader when I was a kid, and I was always so salty. I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. You did. Why do I have to do it? But then when God called me into ministry and I started at my first church, I knew how to run VBS because I was doing it at 10 because I did it beside my mom.
Yeah, that's right. And
like God knows what he's doing.
You include them in the blessings and the burdens of it, right? They get to see you wrestle with some things, and they also get to see you blessed by it all. And I think
that's my next question, because in 40 years, there is no way that everything has been sunshine and roses for you, that every church member has just been lovely. There's never been any problems.
Yeah.
As a parent serving in ministry, whether you're the senior pastor or church staff, there is still a lot of yucky. And our kids see that. And that sometimes causes PKs to leave the faith, to leave the church. We hear those stories all the time. So what did you do to walk through that church yuckiness and make sure that your kids still grow up to love Jesus and the church?
Well, we have to stay authentic with them, and ministry is messy. So, but I know my calling. And so whether it's somebody attacking me relationally, one of our elders did years ago, and it was a really bad scene at our church. We had to open kind of just everybody on the same page, and I just opened up our whole life to them. Said, I'm an open book. Y'all study whatever you need to study to figure this out. But whether it's a relational issue or just a verbal assault or whatever that is, I was fired at one point and rehired the same afternoon. I had to live through all that from a church that had not paid good attention to its membership. But at the end of the day, you have to know your calling. So as a minister, I know my calling, and I told my kids on the day that I was going to be fired, it's going to be okay. I don't know how. I know God called us here, and I don't know how, but he's going to walk us through this. So they got to see my faith trying to fight its way through. Paul says, fight the good fight of faith. And so, and by that afternoon, I'm rehired as the pastor forever there and still there 26 years later. So, but I also think it's important for ministers, that bitter spirits will destroy you. So you got to have, I always try to keep 2 older mentors. Now, the older I get, the harder it gets to find 2. But older mentors I'm not looking for a mentor that is, that's a wow factor. Back to our wow conversation. I'm not looking for a personality guy. I'm looking for a guy that bears fruit. And most of those are, like we've been talking about, in the smaller ministry circles. They're unsung heroes, and they're quiet natured pastors that have loved on a community and a group of people that have loved and hated them. They've loved on them for years, and they're bearing tons of fruit now. And the end of their lifetime is bearing a lot of fruit. That's who you want mentoring you as a pastor. You need somebody that knows how to get to that level. So you need 2 of those. It's always good to have 2 peer level guys that are, it can be pooled ignorance when the 3 of you get together because you're functioning just from your viewpoint, but at least you got somebody that understands what you're saying. So you got to have some peers there, and I think you should have at least one of those peers should be outside your church community. So when you talk bad about your church, you're not gossiping to your church, you're getting help. So I've had several of my peers eventually join my church, and I had to quit doing that. Go find another guy now, because now you know all the names. So, but then you build good relationships with your elders in the church. I have a real close relationship with my elders. We have them over here at the house all the time and meet with them and feed them, and they spend a lot of time with me. So staying really close to your elders, so you know their families, you know their lives, you know their pets, just like you do with your church kids. The pastor has to do that with his inner circle. So I think all of that helps you get to the place where you can just keep going, and perseverance is the key, right? If we don't quit, we win. And as I said at the summit, we win big, right? he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. So as long as we don't quit, we're going to win big.
Mm-hmm.
And the rewards in heaven are going to be awesome. We give them back to him as a gift, which is awesome too. Can't wait to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. How we walk through church hurt with our kids is, I think, so important. That's when I went through my struggle season, I shielded my kids as much as possible. My younger was like 5, so she didn't really get what was going on, but my big kid, he was bigger. And the thing I'm most proud of during that is I walked through stuff that no children's leader should have to walk through. Yep. And both my kids love church.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, I'm sure I messed up. I'm sure my face will show my emotions. So sometimes my face probably needed to apologize. But my kids walked through a horrible season that could have affected them horribly, where they want nothing to do with church because of how I was treated. Because, I'm mommy, and that's mommy. But they love church, and I'm so proud of that.
You stay at it, right? You didn't quit because you got hurt. You just pushed in and.
Yeah. Well, I did quit that church.
But you're back, right? You're still serving. So.
Well, and that was when, it was bad. It was messy. Like, it was so messy. I was so mistreated. It was really bad. And I resigned, and they canceled church to not have to tell people that Amber resigned. Right. Yeah. And so I'm heartbroken, right? That was 10 years of my life, and I loved it. And the next Sunday, I wanted to stay and wallow. Like, I wanted to just kind of lick my wounds, even though I chose to leave. The circumstances were hard. And I told my husband, I'm like, no, I want to wallow, but I'm showing my kids that when we're hurting, where do we go? We go to Jesus. So we went to church, and we went back home. I went to the church I was born and raised, where my parents still are. And it's like there was I don't remember, was that Sunday or a couple Sundays after, it was guest pastors filling in, and my mom would just look at me and she's like, this sermon's for you. And I cried through a lot of church services, but when we're hurt, we don't leave church. We stay in, because God made church, and church is beautiful. It is messy. It is full of sinners just like us, but we gotta do it.
Nehemiah, when they're attacked, he prays and he keeps working. He prays and he keeps working. He prays and he keeps working. And you have to just push through, right? You have to keep persevering. That's a big issue with Jesus teaching the disciples. This isn't going to be easy, but just persevere to the end, and you're going to see the benefits, the fruit, and the blessings. So.
Yeah. So I know you guys are seeing it with working with churches. There's a lot of church hurt. There's hurting people. There is, if you look online, you see people are either quitting or getting fired from churches right and left. So what kind of advice would you give to someone starting out in ministry? Like, they're in their first 6 months, whether it's a senior pastor, a Kidmin leader, someone on church staff, what advice would you give them to be in it for the long haul for 40, almost 50 years?
Well, we'll just go right back to what I was saying got us through there. You need some older mentors that are fruit bearers. You need some really godly men. They don't have to be high personality, type A salesman-y people. They just need to be guys that can get through to the end. You think about in the Marine Corps, they get older Marines to go sit with the new Marines, and those guys have zero personality, man. They're tough, but they got through. They've fought through so many battles, and they know how to get that guy in a mindset that can get him through. So you need the older mentors. You need some peers, and then you also need for yourself to find a way to have to give yourself a break. I'm terrible.
Oh, look at that look you're getting.
I'm a task-oriented person, so I don't take breaks easy. I don't Sabbath well. We've got a bunch of people in our circle that beg me to be better at Sabbath, and I'm trying so hard. But as an older guy, I'm a workaholic. I love what I do. I can't imagine, sitting down and not doing anything. So even when I'm sitting down trying to not do anything, I'm doing things. I've been known to take my notes and stuff into my deer stand. That's a terrible idea. So
you're not going to get many deer that way.
I figured that out pretty fast.
But maybe a great sermon.
Yeah. So, but one of the things that is necessary, you need some hobby. You need good relationship with your elders, but you need some hobby or something that's your break, whatever that is. If it's just, going to the beach, reading a good book, if you're a movie person, I know a lot of the younger pastors love to get on and play video games or whatever all that is. Not my style, but I'm a go to the woods guy. I get in the woods, my head clears. Even I'm working up at the deer farm my friend owns. I'm just feeling better about it all. And I always tell my deacons, if I get to shoot something at the end of the year, 142 days from hunting season, just so you know that I keep track of that. But if I get to the end of the year and actually get to shoot something, my deacons will have a better year. So they get to live a little longer is what I tell them. So go hunting. But that's my stress break. That's the thing that helps me relax, sense, it's a whole different sense of God to me when I'm in the woods, when I'm in nature and all that. It's a whole different sense of who God is, and my life has a bigger picture. It's a lot easier for me to see that than when I'm up in the middle of it all. So highly recommend guys do that. But those older mentors, they'll push you into the woods or fishing or whatever your hobby needs to be. If you like fixing cars, fix up an old car. If you're a bike rider, go bike riding, hike trails, whatever it is. Just get out there and do something that's the break, so your brain gets a little refreshed.
Yeah. Josh, what would you say, looking both from, watching your dad pastor healthily, I think that's a word, successfully for all these years, but then both as your time in ministry, what would your advice be to someone starting out in ministry? How do they stay in it for the long haul?
Yeah, I think you have to, I know for me, especially what it was know your calling. You have to know your calling and stay true to your calling, no matter what the, naysayers are going to say, and there are going to be some naysayers. And I think that I've learned that over the years, just through different, friendships and relationships and things like that. It's, you're going to have the people that are going to say, well, but this isn't going to be, like even especially in college, this isn't going to work out for you, financially. This isn't going to
Wait, you mean ministry jobs don't pay well? We're not in it for the money?
You're gonna have to work 2 or 3 jobs, or you're gonna have to work your career and do this at the same time, or be bi or tri-vocational, right? And you have all of that thrown in your face as kind of this, don't even worry about that, don't even go that direction. But one of the things that I know, and that I know from having watched my dad for as many years as I have, is that calling is a calling, and if you're called to do something, you can't. It burns so deep inside of you that you can't say no to it.
Jeremiah 17.
Yeah, it's the even if I wanted to say no to that, I would not be able to. I can't not do it.
Exactly.
And so I think my advice would be know your calling, and know what God created you to do, and then lean into your spiritual gifts. Whatever God has gifted you to do spiritually. Whether that's, preaching or teaching, or, for me, if it's the, using your talents and gifts and abilities in a particular niche of ministry, like digital arts or communication or worship leadership. I still grab my guitar sometimes and lead worship, during the week, for different things, because I know that's a spiritual gift God's given me, and I don't want to abandon that or let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those little avenues and venues of ministry are important to lean into if you have a gifting or calling in it.
Mm-hmm. And then God's going to also push you out of where you didn't want to go, and then you have to go there.
Your comfort zone, for sure. He always does.
He loves to do that.
that every time.
What you're saying about you have to do the calling. God was recently asking me to do something I really didn't want to do. And I know that I was supposed to do it, and I really did not want to do it because it was not going to end well. And he and I both knew that I was going to do it. I was just waiting to see how long I could say no, because I really didn't want to do it. So I just joked. I'm like, I'm just going to avoid any big bodies of water with very large fish that could swallow me, and I'll be fine. Like, I'll avoid some earthquakes when so the ground doesn't open up and get me.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
He has a way.
He'll figure it out.
He gave me my pass, and then one day he's like, "You're done. You got to do it." And so I literally was like shaking, and I didn't, and it went exactly as I thought it was going to go. It went terribly, but it was a burden lifted off.
Yeah, followed through.
But I just avoided whales for a while,
That's right. Stay away from those.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up, there's so many nuggets of wisdom in this. Just what healthy ministry leadership should look like. Tell us some more about 614, because that's that's a big passion of you all is to equip the local church. So tell us, what is 614? How can it help our churches if our friends are listening to this and think, I need some help? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, we really work hard to help churches get healthy. We call it rescuing churches, but some churches don't feel the need to be rescued. So if that term offends you, just get us to help you. We just don't want you to fail or struggle at what you're doing. We really want to come alongside. We provide counseling for you, visits, lots of years of ministry. And like at our summit, which we had about 40 pastors there, we had 900, how many years of ministry? 900 something years of ministry in a room.
Wow.
And at the summit, we don't do all the talking. We let the room talk. We ask questions and we want all that wisdom poured into the guys. So we provide visits and training. If I'm meeting with your church or your church's pastor or leadership, and I know another church that's just ahead of you in something like that, I just build the connections and we try to connect you. And we do all the coaching for free. And then of course, Josh does tons of the media. I'll let him fill that in, but he can come alongside and help with the media stuff. And, our ministries, like a missionary, we're supported by our supporters. So we don't, as a little church, you can't afford any help. And so we're that revitalizing team that comes alongside and says, we got this, just let us help. So.
Yeah, we don't charge a dime for anything that we do, right? I mean, we're completely funded 501c3 nonprofit. So, it's all just us coming in, with our years and experience and saying, how can we help you move from here to here? And for me, a lot of that looks like what I mentioned a bit earlier with the digital media. It's the churches and the pastors that say, we know we need to get this done. We know that we're way behind in this, but we've never even tried. We don't have anybody that wants to volunteer to even step out and try to do it. Everybody that we've asked has said no. But now we have, this one person who kind of thinks they maybe want to give it a shot, but they're kind of scared. And I'll come in and train that person. And then we'll develop a team. We'll get a team of volunteers going. I'll come in and do training sessions.
Superb training, by the way.
On all of
Superb.
that. We'll do digital and social media. We'll do marketing. We'll do branding. If your church doesn't even have a logo yet, I'll come in and help you build all of that. I'll design it for you. And we'll get all of that up and going so that you have a visual face in your community now. And that community that you're trying to disciple, trying to get the gospel into, trying to, build a relationship with, recognizes that you're there and can visually see that, which is so important. I mean, from with the culture that we got, our whole culture is visual these days.
Where do we find a new church? We look up on social media first.
Yeah,
we're looking for a website and social media before we step foot in that sanctuary.
It's the first place everybody goes. And so it's like, if they can't even hear your pastor preach through a podcast recording, through a Facebook Live, through a YouTube video, if they're not finding you somewhere like that and trying you out first before they walk into your door, they're never going to show up. And first, they might not even know that you're there at all.
Yeah, you're the Bermuda Triangle. You don't exist.
Yeah. You're just invisible.
Yeah. So when I left my last church, okay, where do we go? Because my husband wasn't sold on going back to my home church because it was small and there was like 2 kids. He's like, that's not the best choice for us. We went on a digital tour of every church in our area of a denomination we were okay with. And I ruled every one of them out because of either what their website looked like. And it's not like I'm like a snob, like, well, you use Cosmic Sands and I hate that. No, like if you told me that you're pushing play on a video for your children's ministry, like if this is why you should come to our kids because they're going to watch this great video, hard pass. And then there was one, like some I didn't like the worship, and I'm not like, our worship leader is 82. And he sometimes forgets the words and we have to stop songs and start over. Like, I'm not like setting the bar high, but there's a lot of inauthentic worship. Right. And so I'm like, nope, not going there. And then there was one, I couldn't handle the pastor's accent. And I'm like, I couldn't listen to it.
Is that awesome. Deep Woods, Kentucky accent problem? Or?
A little bit, but I'm Northern Kentucky, so I don't have a ton of accent. But this one pastor, it was rough. And my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, we could not do this every Sunday.
Not going to work.
Good.
That's awesome.
Well, we work with church in Louisiana, so there's an accent. Georgia.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they turn on the
light. I mean, you got a little bit of an Alabama accent, so.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But it's not bad. I could listen to it every Sunday, so it's good.
And I will say just real quick, Amber, for anybody that wants to know more about what we do, 614ministries.org, and hit the What We Do tab. There is a full breakdown list there of all of the services that we provide. Mm-hmm. So you can find everything there, and there's an expanded drop down for each one of those.
Yep. And the links are going to be in the show notes. Definitely go check them out if your church could use little help. The children's ministry, if you're doing silo ministry, it's not the best, but hey, 614 can still help you out.
Right.
So if you need help on your branding, if you just need help, if you just want to talk to a pastor who has been in it for the long haul and needs some wisdom, please go check them out. Stan, so many nuggets of wisdom that I wholeheartedly agree with. I haven't been in ministry as long as you have, but just yes to so much. Just discipleship is our goal. We need people pouring into us because ministry can be very lonely.
Sure.
You hear this, but you don't always realize it until it's you. All those friends that you had at that church, that these were my people, and then you're no longer at that church and you don't have those people anymore. So the wisdom and having people outside of your church pouring into you, yes, that is a beautiful thing of the world that we live in with social media.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who I'm pouring into because I've walked the walk that they're now walking, and I've never met them face to face, but I can offer some wisdom because I've been in that situation. And so here you go.
That's right. Well, and discipleship at the core is, are you following Jesus, right? So when I'm discipling somebody, I'm telling them I'm following him and I need you to follow me to follow him because I want you to follow him. So what that means is we're reading scripture to see him. We're finding him as the wow factor in every part of our life, not the wow of other stuff, but just him. We're finding Jesus to be the amazing one who died for our sins, who loves us enough to pay for our sins, who wants us to live with him forever. Who wants me to live with him forever? Well, Jesus does, right? And he makes a way for that to happen. So it's just teaching people to lead others to that relationship.
Love it. Love it. Stan, Josh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. But not just that, thank you for the work that you're doing for local churches to help pour into them. Thank you for the stuff you're doing with 614 and then in your own church. Wow. So thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having us. It's a real privilege, and we're going to recommend your stuff over to our page. So,
well, thanks. All right. And Kidmin leaders, remember, what you do matters.